The iPhone XR has been the most controversial product Apple has released since the AirPods, and some will even argue that the iPhone XR is the most important iPhone released this year. But is that true? What's up guys, my name's Brandon and I've been using the iPhone XR for 2 months now, and these are my thoughts. So the iPhone XR is a more affordable iPhone than the main flagships like the iPhone XS and XS Max, but with the same powerful processing power of the big dogs. It's very similar to the iPhone SE's placement in the market back in the day. But of course, $750 is still not cheap by any means, so there's a lot to discuss when it comes to the age-old question, is this phone worth buying? So first off, the build quality of the XR is fantastic. I mean, sure, it's not stainless steel like the iPhone XS and XS Max, but the aluminum casing feels just about as good in the hand. It still feels like you're holding a very expensive flagship phone in your hand, so you're not going to really feel like it's a cheap phone or anything like that anytime. And let me just say that the iPhone X, the 6.1-inch phone, is the best feeling phone I've felt in my hand in a while. I mean, it feels better than me to the iPhone XS Max, which is my daily driver right now, just because sometimes the XS Max still does feel a little bit too big. I don't have huge hands. I have about average hands, I would say. But the iPhone XR is just the perfect size. I thought the iPhone X was a little bit on the smaller side. I didn't think it was big enough, but it was very close. And I think the iPhone XR is exactly the perfect size of an iPhone that I would always want. And another thing I love about the finish on the iPhone XR is that there are no scratches on either the screen, on the back, on the, on the casing around the edges. I don't have any scratches at all on the iPhone XR, and I have not even been using a case or a screen protector since day one. Even when I used it as my daily driver, I wasn't even using a case. So it's super impressive to see that there are no scratches somehow on this iPhone XR. Another thing I love is that the iPhone XR comes in 6 different colors. So think about this for a second. When was the last time you had an iPhone that was not black, gold, silver, or rose gold? When was the last time you had a phone that wasn't one of those colors? It's probably been a very, very long time. So this little change of the color of the iPhone may seem very small and subtle, but it brings a whole new level of excitement almost to the iPhone. I just love the look of this red iPhone on my desk. It's the only one on my desk that is such a unique color like this red. I mean, obviously the coral and the other ones are really unique colors as well, but I just love the red. It really stands out, and it's just really a change that, again, doesn't really seem huge in nature, but it's just a psychological thing. It just feels so good to have a change in the color of this iPhone. Now let's once again talk about the display on the iPhone XR. Of course, this is the most controversial part of the iPhone XR, and I cannot make a video on this phone without discussing the display. So we have a 6.1-inch liquid retina LCD screen with a resolution of 1792 by 828 and a pixel density of 326 ppi. So yes, we don't quite have a 1080p display, and yes, it is noticeably worse than the iPhone XS, the XS Max, or really any other OLED display, but just how much worse is the iPhone XR display? And the answer to that is really just going to come down to your personal preference and how you consume content. Now, me personally, I watch everything in 1080p, and the 1080p quality on YouTube on the iPhone XS Max is nearly the same as it is on the iPhone XR. I found there to be really little to no difference in video quality on these two phones, which may surprise a lot of people. Now, yes, if you look really closely, you will notice shadows being more pronounced and blacks just being blacker on the OLED panel. But if you didn't have an OLED panel to have side by side and compare it, you would not even question the quality of the iPhone XR. And again, a big reason that Apple was able to pull this off is because of that liquid retina display that's just full of vibrant colors with those deep blacks and those super white whites. It's just such a great display for being an LCD. So yeah, when it comes to video watching, whether that be on YouTube, Netflix, or a video saved locally, the difference in quality between the iPhone XR and an OLED panel is going to be minor. Now, if you use your phone outdoors a lot and you had an OLED panel in the past, an OLED display on a phone, you may be a little bit disappointed because this does not get as bright as the OLED panel on the iPhone XS and XS Max, or really any other OLED panel. So it's not going to be as easy to see in sunlight, and I did notice this slightly when I was using it day to day. It wasn't really a huge annoyance, but it was something that I did notice, and it is something you should keep in mind. Now, as far as the software on the iPhone XR, we are running iOS 12 on iOS 12.1.3 right now, and we are getting the same updates like the XS and the XS Max are getting as well. However, recently, a lot of these past few updates have been really Apple has really been hitting on the iPhone XR and really adding some improvements specific to the iPhone XR, which is really nice to see. They've improved haptic touch in certain areas. They added a whole new menu and settings for the haptic touch feedback if you want to do it slow or fast. And of course, we do have the gestures on the iPhone XR as well. We don't have the home button, so that is really nice. Of course, if you did come from an iPhone 10, it's going to be really easy to pick it up where you left off on there. But if you did come from a phone with a home button, it will take a little bit of getting used to having no home button and having to work with these gestures, but you are going to love it because this is the future, of course. I don't see anybody ever wanting a home button again after using an iPhone 10 or later. And of course, we do have Face ID on the iPhone XR, and it is extremely accurate as expected. It's pretty much just as accurate as something like the 2018 iPad Pro, of course, just like the iPhone XS and XS Max as well. Super accurate, and it is faster, in my opinion, than Touch ID, and just has so much more of a benefit over something like Touch ID. Now, of course, I cannot mention the iPhone XR software without mentioning the loss of 3D Touch and the introduction of Haptic Touch. So yes, 3D Touch does not exist on the iPhone XR. Unfortunately, that was one of my favorite features in iOS. I love just being able to 3D touch on applications and be able to do things from that little quick menu there. But you can no longer do that on the iPhone XR. However, there is haptic touch on the iPhone XR, which you can use throughout the OS. You can use it in like the control center, the notification center, and places like that. But you can't use it on apps, which is my favorite place to use it. So that is pretty unfortunate. It's not a huge deal breaker for me. I mean, obviously, it was a feature I missed a lot when I was using this as my daily driver, but I guess to most people, it's probably not going to be like a deal breaker for this phone. But I will say with the most recent software update, Haptic Touch has gotten better on the iPhone XR, and it's looking like Apple, once again, is continuing to improve Haptic Touch. So that is really awesome to see if you do have an iPhone XR. Now, one thing that I do also want to mention that I did experience while using the iPhone XR as my daily driver and using it with my SIM card, and that is that the cellular connectivity issues that I've been having a lot on my iPhone XS and my XS Max, my XS when I had it, now my XS Max as my daily driver. I've been having connectivity issues pretty much ever since the day I got it. But with the iPhone XR, ever since the day I got it, I never had any of those cellular connectivity issues. So that is a big, big pro. That is a big positive here for the iPhone XR. And that once again makes me think that there is some kind of hardware issue with the iPhone XS and XS Max. And I'm not saying that there is, and I don't want to, confirm that, but it's really starting to feel like that, especially when I put my SIM card in the XR and never had those issues that I had on the XS and XS Max. It really made me think there was something wrong with these flagship phones from Apple. As for the battery life on the iPhone XR, it is great. It is fantastic. Now, I did do a video. You can see right here, I did a battery test video, and you can see that the iPhone XR actually got beat out by both the iPhone XS and the XS Max. And that was pretty surprising to most people, myself included, because the iPhone XR, when I used it as my daily driver, lasted me all day. Felt like battery life was actually better on the XR than the XS Max, regardless of what that battery test video showed. So that is something very interesting to keep in mind as well. Now, it's not going to be a significant difference. It gets about the same battery life as the XS Max, which is actually a really great thing because it's such a smaller form, it's such a smaller phone than the iPhone XS Max. When it comes to photo and video quality, the iPhone XR is also fantastic. Even though it does only have that one single lens 12 megapixel camera, it is still a fantastic camera. Now, of course, you are limited on the portrait features because of that single lens. Like you can't do the portrait mode on objects, which is actually a big con in my opinion, because I really like having that background blur when I'm, focusing on like my cat or like an object. It's really bad that you can't do it with anything but people. So that is kind of a letdown, and that is a big con with portrait mode on the iPhone XR. But of course, the photo and the video quality is excellent, especially when you shoot in 4K 60 FPS. And once again, we do have Smart HDR on the iPhone XR, and that is the secret sauce that makes the camera so great in the XS, the XS Max, and of course the iPhone XR as well. So yeah, overall, I've really been enjoying the iPhone XR over the last 2 months of usage. Once again, I have not been using this as my daily driver for those full 2 months, but I do constantly use this phone every single day because I do load up the latest beta software on the iPhone XR and I run it. So I'm constantly using the iPhone XR, and it's just been a great phone for me. So now the question comes, should you buy the iPhone XR and is it worth it? So first of all, yes, the phone is definitely worth the $750. Now, should you buy it? And I would say that if you're coming from an iPhone 8 Plus or below, then yes, you should really consider buying the iPhone XR. But if you have the iPhone 10 or newer, I would not buy the iPhone XR. If you have an older phone, the iPhone XR is going to be a great upgrade. It's going to be a great form factor. It's going to have a great display. It's going to be much, much faster than what you're used to. The camera is going to be a lot better. You're going to have some more awesome software-based features as well with the iPhone XR. And of course, you will have Face ID and the gesture controls because you will not have the home button, which is another huge pro and, just kind of future-proofing your phone as well when you get a phone like this. Now, on the flip side, if you do depend on 3D Touch a lot, if you really need 3D Touch and you really take a lot of photos with portrait mode and you like to be able to use portrait mode on objects, I would say go for the iPhone XS Max over the iPhone XS and obviously over the iPhone XR. And I will say that OLED panels do also give some people eye strain, so the iPhone XR and that LCD display could also help if you do have eye issues as well, and it'll be less straining on your eyes to use something like the iPhone XR over an OLED panel like on the XS or XS Max. But anyways guys, there you have it. I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Also leave a comment down below what you think about the iPhone XR and my thoughts expressed in this video. But anyways guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.